Hey, welcome to Graphic Policy Television, GPTV. I'm Brett. In my hands is the graphic novel What Unites Us by Dan Rather. It's one of the releases for the World Citizen Comics from First Second. It's an interesting line of graphic novels with a civic political bent. So far, we've done a few reviews of the releases. I think we've reviewed everything that's come out, and it's been a very interesting line. Like, for those who don't know, I have a political background. I've worked in politics for 20 years nonstop for the most part. Yeah, actually pretty much 20 years nonstop. And I've done numerous roles on campaigns in actual government, all sorts of different positions. So seen a lot, but it's really interesting kind of coming from that background and my love of comics going in and reading these graphic novels. So what unites us is an interesting one is that it's basically a graphic adaptation of Dan Rather's essays. He actually put out a book of the same material called What Unites Us. It's just essays of his thoughts on various topics. So What Unites Us goes and puts, images to those thoughts. Now, I haven't read Dan Rather's original book, so I don't know how it compares to that. But as a graphic novel, it's pretty solid. Like, it's really interesting. And kind of fascinating. So, obviously, written by Dan Rather, Elliot Kirschner as well, and then Tim Foley does the art. So, it's a graphic novel that takes off, starts from his young years as a child, kind of growing up, and then takes us through various topics. And it starts off with just an interesting thought, and Dan Rather's thoughts about patriotism versus nationalism. And it really kind of sets the ground and the tone for the rest of his essays as to, what he thinks unites us. And really sets us apart from a lot of other nations. And it goes through a lot of different topics. So, it talks about immigration, education, the environment. It's really, and the press as well. Like, it's really a wide variety of topics. And I think it's very interesting to read the thoughts of someone who has been on the precipice, who's been on that edge overlooking history so often. He has a very interesting perspective, very worldly perspective, and agree or disagree with him. I think it's a voice that you want to hear just because he's experienced so much, he's seen so much, and in his role, he's been to so many places. So he really does have an interesting opinion and perspective that I think is very valid to read and listen to. And I think that just the tone of it all really just starts with that first chapter talking of patriotism versus nationalism, and what draws the line. And it seems to be, to me, his thread throughout it all is the American ability to love one's nation, but at the same time question one's nation. That we have a flawed government, that we have a flawed document that everything's built off of, and a flawed, which is resulted in a flawed system. But we recognize that it's flawed, and true patriotism is loving one's country, including those flaws, but trying to work to better that country, to better society, to better community, and ask questions. And that seems to be a lot of what he goes with. He asks a lot of questions throughout this. He points out a lot of flaws, and he, kind of gives those hints of if we want to do X, Y, and Z, we need to think about X, Y, and Z. When talking about journalism, he kind of goes into that, without a strong press, that we are going to hurt and have some issues. And I think we've seen that quite often. And goes into reasons why the press has failed and is dying, and that, it came at bad times, like, the Iraq War under the Bush administration, or second Bush administration, that, the press was hurting at that point, and that led to the press's failure of asking questions. And he doesn't necessarily have answers as to how to fix things, but he recognizes these are the issues, and these are the things we need to think about. And I think it's really interesting. It's a very to me it's a fascinating series of essays that got me to think about issues, and try to think through how to fix them or how to improve stuff. And it's a series of essays that I think challenges the readers to think about stuff. It doesn't have answers, it doesn't have conclusions, but it does an excellent job of asking a lot of questions. And I think the thing that I found impressive, even more so, about the graphic novel is that it's a graphic novel. Like, these, as prose, this is a really easy thing to understand. and read, like to think about like how it would be formatted and all that. But the images that goes through and brings these essays to life are really interesting. And visually, Tim Foley does this amazing job. It's a beautiful, beautiful graphic novel to read and look at, and there's so much different styles to some of the images. Actually, the next image I think is great to look at. Like, that's amazing, amazing art of Martin Luther King, and then you kind of got like this cartoonish take on it as well, which I think is really kind of fascinating. At the top, and it's to stick to this red, white, and blue coloring too. It's beautiful. Like the art is really, really amazing, and I think the graphic novel does a fantastic job. Going over everything and really discussing the art. The art I think brings the essays to life is a great way of putting it. It's a really, I think, good, solid read. It definitely will be one to kind of get you to think. Rather points out flaws, even with himself, failures that he's done. It's a really interesting reflection, a person's reflection upon themselves, and also thinking about the nation and history and where we need to go, where we are, and where we've been, and where we need to go. It's another. I think it fits the line really, really well. To me, it would be a fascinating line to put into a classroom and like do an entire semester around of just the line of all these graphic novels and have a discussion with the students and get them to think. Really engaging stuff, and I think it's really solid. Like this is a nice compilation of essays about history and done with a visual flair that I think is fantastic for the book. Like it's not, when I went into it thinking visual, graphic essays, I'm just like, I'm not quite sure how that would come off, but the art is absolutely fantastic. And I think it's done as a way to enhance what has already been written as opposed to an attempt to I think visually translate what's written, if that makes sense. Like it allows the essays to speak, and the visuals are there to enhance it as opposed to take over for what has already been written. Just beautiful, beautiful stuff. Really great essay. Just solid stuff. If you are interested in what Dan Rather has to say, and you've never read his book, What Unites Us, this graphic novel version of it I think is really top notch and really cool and interesting stuff. So go get it. It's out now. You can get it in comic shops and bookstores. We've got a link beneath this video. Put in your zip code, tell the shops near you. No shop, no problem. We have some affiliate links. There are affiliate links, so we get a small percentage of that. By doing that, you help support our site, so thank you. And speaking of support, I want to thank First Second for hooking us up with this review copy, and thank you for watching. If you're into graphic novels, if you are into comics, check us out every single day at graphicpolicy.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr, all at Graphic Policy, keeping it nice and consistent. So until next time, keep reading those comics, and keep it geeky. Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.